Hello, everybody. This is Nanette Kennedy with Evolution Revolution and Humanities Team. This is our weekly weekly Neale Donald Walsch book group. We right now happen to be reading Conversations with God, Book 3. And is anybody reading from the book that's just Book 3? It's not any other. Shabana, what page do you have us on?
You're on mute, Shabana.
I'm still looking.
Okay. Angela, did you remember, or Sarah?
No, I'm on the PDF, Nanette.
Oh. Crimey.
I couldn't find book 3. I've got plenty of book 1s and 2. I couldn't find 3.
Well, that's the problem with so many different types of books and PDFs, and if you can mark, with a little star or something where we end up the week before, that'll help us. But Linda, why don't you go ahead and start, and
Okay.
we'll just.
So just to give a little bit of background, he's talking about, Neale says, so you mentioned something about that in book 1 also. And they're talking about the be, do, have paradigm just before where we're picking up. And God says, here's a short way of stating that principle. In life, you do not have to do anything. It's all a question of what you are being. This is one of these 3 messages I will touch upon again at the end of our dialogue. I will close the book with it. For now, and to illustrate this, think of a person who just knows that if he could only have a little more time, a little more money, or a little more love, he'd be truly happy. So here's where we're starting. Neale saying, so he does not get the connection between his not being very happy right now and his not having the time, the money, or the love he wants. That's right. On the other hand, the person who is being happy seems to have time to do everything that's really important, all the money that's needed, and enough love to last a lifetime. So he finds that he has everything he needs to be happy by being happy to begin with. Exactly. Deciding ahead of time what you choose to be produces that in your experience. To be or not to be, that is the question. Precisely. Happiness is a state of mind. And like all states of mind, it reproduces itself in physical form. There's a statement for a refrigerator magnet. All states of mind reproduce themselves. But how can you be happy to begin with, or be anything you are seeking to be, more prosperous, for instance, or more loved, if you're not having what you think you need in order to be that? Act as if you are, and you will draw it to you. What you act as if you are, you become. In other words, fake it till you make it? Well, something like that, yes. Only you really can't be faking. Your actions have to be sincere. Everything you do out of sincerity, or for the benefit of the action, or the benefit of the action is lost. This is not because I won't reward you. God does not reward or punish, as you know. But natural law requires the body, mind, and spirit to be united in thought, word, and action for the process of creation to work. You cannot fool your mind. If you are insincere, your mind knows it. And that's that. You've just ended any chance of your mind that your mind can help you in the creative process. Hang on a second, I need to clear my throat. You can, of course, create without your mind. It's just a great deal more difficult. You can ask your body to do something your mind doesn't believe, and if your body does it long enough, your mind will begin to let go of its former thought about that and create a new thought. Once you have a new thought about a thing, you're well on your way to creating it as a permanent aspect of your being, rather than something you're just acting out. This is doing things the hard way, and even in such instances, the action must be sincere. Unlike what you can do with people, you cannot manipulate the universe. So here we have a very delicate balance. The body does something in which the mind does not believe, yet the mind must add the ingredient of sincerity to the body's action for it to work. How can a mind add sincerity when it does not believe in what the body is doing? By taking out the selfish element of personal gain. How? The mind may not be able to sincerely agree that the actions of the body can bring you that which you choose, but the mind seems very clear that God will bring good things to you through you to another. Therefore, whatever you choose for yourself, give to another. Would you say that again, please? Of course. Whatever you choose for yourself, give to another. If you choose to be happy, cause another to be happy. If you choose to be prosperous, cause another to prosper. If you choose more love in your life, cause another to have more love in theirs. Do this sincerely, not because you seek personal gain, but because you really want the other person to have that. And all things you give away will come to you. Why is that so? How does that work? The very act of your giving something away causes you to experience that you have it to give away. Since you cannot give to another something you do not now have, your mind comes to a new conclusion, a new thought about you, namely that you must have this or you could not be giving it away. This new thought then becomes your experience. You start being that. Once you start being a thing, you've engaged the gears of the most powerful creation machine in the universe, your divine self. Whatever you are being, you are creating. The circle is complete, and you will create more and more of that in your life. It will be made manifest in your physical experience. This is the greatest secret of life. It is what Book 1 and 2 were written to tell you. It's all there in far greater detail. Explain to me, please, why sincerity is so important in giving to another what you choose for yourself. If you give to another,
You're frozen again.
you're this. I am?
Now you're not, but you were for a minute there.
Okay. Any comments while I'm stopped? Okay, I'll keep going. If you give to another as a contrivance, a manipulation meant to get something to come to you, your mind knows this. You've just given it a signal that you do not now have this. And since the universe is nothing but a big copying machine, reproducing your thoughts in physical form, that will be your experience. That is, you will continue to experience not having it, no matter what you do. Further, that will be the experience of the person to whom you're trying to give it. They will see that you are merely seeking to get something, that you have nothing really to offer, and your giving will be an empty gesture, seen for all the self-serving shallowness from which it springs. The very thing you sought to attract, when you give something to another with purity of heart, because you see that they want it, need it, and should have it, then you will discover that you have it to give. And that is a grand discovery. This is true. It really works this way. I remember once when things were not going well in my life, holding my head and thinking that I had no more money and very little food, and that I didn't know when I was going to eat my next square meal or how I could pay my rent. That very evening, I met a young couple at the bus station. I'd gone down to pick up a package, and there were these kids huddled on a bench, using their coats for a blanket. I saw them, and my heart went out to them. I remembered when I was young, how it was when we were kids, just skimming by and on the move like that. I walked over to them and I asked them if they'd like to come over to my place and sit by a hot fire and have a little hot chocolate, maybe open up the daybed and get a good night's rest. They looked up at me with eyes wide like children on Christmas morning. Well, we got to the house and I made them a meal, and we all ate better that night than any of us had for quite a while. The food had always been there. The refrigerator was loaded. I just had to reach back and grab all the stuff I'd shoved back there. I made everything in the fridge stir fry. It was terrific. I remember thinking, where did all this food come from? The next morning, I even gave the kids breakfast and sent them on their way. I reached into my pocket as I dropped them back off at the bus station, and I gave them a $20 bill. Maybe this will help, I said. Gave them a hug and sent them on their way. I felt better about my own situation all day, heck, all week. And that experience, which I've never forgotten, produced a profound change in my outlook and my understandings about life. Things got better from there. And as I looked at myself in the mirror this morning, I noticed something very important. I'm still here. That's a beautiful story, and you're right. That's exactly how it works. So when you want something, give it away. You will no longer be wanting it. You will immediately experience having it. And from there on, it is only a question of degree. Psychologically, you'll find it's much easier to add on to than to create out of thin air. I have just heard something very profound here. Can you relate this now to the second part of my question? Is there a connection? What I'm proposing, you see, is that you already have the answer to that question. Right now, you are living the thought that you do not have the answer, that if you had the answer, you would have wisdom. So you come to me for wisdom. Yet I say to you, be wisdom, and you will have it. So what is the fastest way to be wisdom? Cause another to be wise. Do you choose to have the answer to this question? Give the answer to another. So now I'll ask you the question. I'll pretend I don't know, and you give me the answer. How can the parent who pulls a child out of traffic be truly loving the child if love means you want for the other what they want for themselves? I don't know. I know you don't. But if you thought you did, what would your answer be? Well, I'd say that the parent did want for the child what the child wanted, which is to stay alive. I'd say that the child did not want to die, but simply did not know that wandering around in traffic could cause that. So that running out there to get that child, the parent wasn't depriving the child of the opportunity to exercise its will at all, but was simply getting in touch with the child's true choice, its deepest desire. That would be a very good answer. If that's true, then you, as God, should be doing nothing but stopping us from hurting ourselves. For it can't be our deepest desire to do damage to ourselves. Yet we do damage to ourselves all the time, and you just sit around and watch us. I'm always in touch with your deepest desire, and I always give you that. Even when you do something that would cause you to die, if that is your deepest desire, that is what you get, the experience of dying. I never, ever interfere with your deepest desire. Do you mean that when we do damage to ourselves, that is what we wanted to do, that is our deepest desire? You cannot do damage to yourselves. You are incapable of being damaged. Damage is a subjective reaction, not an objective phenomenon. You can choose to experience damage to yourself out of any encounter or phenomenon, but that's entirely your decision. Given that truth, the answer to your question is yes. When you have damaged yourself, it is because you wanted to. But I'm speaking at a very high esoteric level, and that is not really where your question is coming from. In the sense that you mean it as a matter of conscious choice, I would say that no, every time you do something that damages yourself, it is not because you wanted to. A child who gets hit by a car because he wandered in the street did not want, desire, seek, consciously choose to get hit by a car. A man who keeps marrying the same kind of woman, one who's all wrong for him, packaged in different forms, does not want, desire, seek, consciously choose to keep creating bad marriages. The person who hits his thumb with a hammer could not be said to have wanted the experience. It was not desired, sought, consciously chosen. Yet all objective phenomenon is drawn to you subconsciously. All events are created by you subconsciously. Every person, place, or thing in your life was drawn to you by you, was self-created, if you will, to provide you with the exact and perfect conditions, the perfect opportunity to experience what you next wish to experience as you go about the business of evolving. Nothing can happen, I say to you, nothing can occur in your life which is not precisely perfect opportunity for you to heal something, create something, or experience something that you wish to heal, create, or experience in order to be who you really are. And who am I really? Who really am I? Whomever you choose to be, whatever aspect of divinity you wish to be, that's who you are. That can change in any given moment. Indeed, it often does, from moment to moment. Yet if you want your life to settle down, to stop bringing you such a wide variety of experiences, there's a way to do that. Simply stop changing your mind so often about who you are and who you choose to be. Well, that may be easier said than done. What I see is that you are making these decisions at many different levels. The child who decides to go out into the street to play in traffic is not making a choice to die. She may be making a number of other choices, but dying is not one of them. The mother knows that. The problem here is not that the child has chosen to die, but that the child has made choices that could lead to more than one outcome, including her dying. The fact is not clear to her. It's unknown to her. It is the missing data which stops the child from making a clear choice, a better choice. So you see, you've analyzed it perfectly. Now I, as God, will never intervene with your choices, but I will always know what they are. Therefore, you may assume that if a thing happens to you, it is perfect that it did so. Nothing escapes perfection in God's world. The design of your life, the people, places, and events in it, have all been perfectly created by the perfect creator of perfection itself, you, and me, in, as, and through you. Now we can work together in this co-creative process, consciously or unconsciously. You can move through life aware or unaware. You can walk your path asleep or awake. You choose. Wait, go back to that comment about making decisions at many different levels. You said that if I wanted life to settle down, I should stop changing my mind about who I am and who I wish to be. Then I said that may not be easy. You made the observation that all of us are making our choices at many different levels. Can you elaborate on that? What does that mean? What are the implications? If all you desire is that your soul is what your soul desired, everything would be very simple. If you listened to the part of you which is pure spirit, all of your decisions would be easy and all the outcomes joyous. That is because the choices of spirit are always the highest choices. They don't need to be second-guessed. They don't need to be analyzed or evaluated. They simply need to be followed, acted on. Yet you are not only a spirit. You are a true divine being made up of body, mind, and spirit. That is both the glory and the wonder of you. For you often make decisions and choices at all three levels simultaneously, and they by no means always coincide. It's not uncommon for your body to want one thing, while your mind seeks another, and your spirit desires yet a third. This can be especially true of children, who are often not mature enough to make distinctions between what sounds like fun to the body and what makes sense to the mind, much less what resonates with the soul. So the child waddles into the street. Now, as God, I am aware of all your choices, even those you make subconsciously. I will never interfere with them, but rather just the opposite. It is my job to ensure that your choices are granted. In truth, you grant them to yourself. What I have done is put a system into place that allows you to do that. The system is called the process of creation and is explained in detail in Book 1. When your choices conflict, then body, mind, and spirit are not acting as one. The process of creation works at all levels, producing mixed results. If, on the other hand, your being is in harmony and your choices are unified, astonishing things can occur. Your young people have a phrase, having it all together, which could be used to describe this unified state of being. There are also levels within levels in your decision making. This is particularly true at the level of the mind. Your mind can and does make decisions and choices from one of at least three interior levels: logic, intuition, emotion, and sometimes from all three, producing the potential for even more inner conflict. And within one of those levels, emotion, there are 5 more levels. These are the 5 natural emotions: grief, anger, envy, fear, and love. And within these, there are 2 final levels: love and fear. The 5 natural emotions include love and fear, yet love and fear are the basis of all emotions. And the 3 other of the natural emotions are outgrowths of these 2. Ultimately, all thoughts are sponsored by love or fear. This is the great polarity. This is the primal duality. Everything ultimately breaks down to one of these. All thoughts, ideas, concepts, understandings, decisions, choices, and actions are based on one of these. And in the end, there is really only one: love. In truth, love is all there is. Even fear is an outgrowth of love, and when used effectively, expresses love. What? Fear expresses love? In its highest form, yes. Everything expresses love when the expression is in its highest form. Does the parent who saves the child from being killed in traffic express fear or love? Well, both, I suppose. Fear for the child's life and love enough to risk one's own life to save the child. Precisely. And so here you see that fear is the highest form. In its highest form becomes love, is love, expressed as fear. Similarly, moving up the scale of emotion, natural emotions, grief, anger, and envy are all some form of fear, which in turn is some form of love. One thing leads to another, do you see? The problem comes in when any of the 5 natural emotions becomes distorted. Then they become grotesque and not recognizable at all as outgrowths of love, much less of God, which is what absolute love is. I've heard of the 5 natural emotions before from my wonderful association with Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She taught me about them. Indeed, and it was I who inspired her to teach about this. So I see that when I make choices, much depends on where I am coming from, and that where I am coming from should be several layers deep. Yes, that is so. Please tell me. I would like to hear it again because I've forgotten much of what Elizabeth taught me, all about the 5 natural emotions. Grief is a natural emotion. It's that part of you which allows you to say goodbye when you don't want to say goodbye, to express, push out, propel the sadness within you at the experience of any kind of loss. It could be the loss of a loved one or the loss of a contact lens. When you are allowed to express your grief, you get rid of it. Children who are allowed to be sad when they are sad feel very healthy about sadness when they are adults, and therefore usually move through their sadness very quickly. Children who are told, there, don't cry, have a hard time crying as adults. After all, they've been told all their life not to do that. So they repress their grief. Grief is continually repressed. Grief that is continually repressed becomes chronic depression, a very unnatural emotion. People have killed because of chronic depression. Wars have started. Nations have fallen. Anger is a natural emotion. It's the tool you have which allows you to say no thank you. It does not have to be abusive, and it never has to be damaging to another. When children are allowed to express their anger, they bring a very healthy attitude about it to their adult years, and therefore usually move through their anger very quickly. Children who are made to feel that their anger is not okay, that it express, and in fact that they shouldn't even express, will have a difficult time appropriately dealing with their anger as adults. Anger that is continually repressed becomes rage, a very unnatural emotion. People have killed because of rage. Wars have started. Nations have fallen. Envy is a natural emotion. It's the emotion that makes a 5-year-old wish he could reach the doorknob the way his sister can, or ride that bike. Envy is the natural emotion that makes you want to do it again, to try harder, to continue striving until you succeed. It's very healthy to be envious, very natural. Hang on, I gotta clear my throat again. Envy is a natural emotion. It's the emotion that makes a 5-year-old wish he could reach the doorknob the way his sister can, or ride that bike. Envy is the natural emotion that makes you want to do it again, to try harder, to continue striving until you succeed. It's very healthy to be envious, very natural. When children are allowed to express their envy, they bring a very healthy attitude about it to their adult years, and therefore usually move through their envy very quickly. Children who are made to feel that envy is not okay, that it is wrong to express it, and in fact that they shouldn't even experience it, will have a difficult time appropriately dealing with their envy as adults. Envy that is continually repressed becomes jealousy, a very unnatural emotion. People have killed because of jealousy, wars have started, nations have fallen. Fear is a natural emotion. All babies are born with only two fears, the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. All other fears are learned responses brought to the child by its environment, taught to the child by its parents. The purpose of natural fear is to build in a bit of caution. Caution is a tool that helps keep the body alive. It's an outgrowth of love, love of self. Children who are made to feel that fear is not okay, that it is wrong to express it, and in fact that they shouldn't even experience it, will have a difficult time appropriately dealing with their fear as adults. Fear that is continually repressed becomes panic, a very unnatural emotion. People have killed because of panic, wars have started, nations have fallen. Love is a natural emotion. When it is allowed to be expressed and received by a child normally and naturally, without intimidation or condition, inhibition or embarrassment, it does not require anything more. For the joy of love expressed, received in this way, is sufficient unto itself. Yet the love which has been conditioned, limited, warped by rules and regulations, rituals and restrictions, controlled, manipulated, and withheld, becomes unnatural. Children who are made to feel that their natural love is not okay, that it is wrong to express it, and in fact that they shouldn't even experience it, will have a difficult time appropriately dealing with love as adults. Love that is continually repressed becomes possessiveness, a very unnatural emotion. People have killed because of possessiveness. Wars have started, nations have fallen. So it is that the natural emotions, when repressed, produce unnatural reactions and responses. And most natural emotions are repressed in most people. Yet these are your friends. These are your gifts. These are your divine tools with which to craft your experience. You are given these tools at birth. They help you negotiate life.
Why don't we pause there?
Okay.
I am going to run out and just got to figure out what's going on with my dogs. They're going nuts. So if you can kind of guide the
Sure.
comments or whatever. And people, you'll have to unmute yourself if you want to talk, because I don't think Linda has the
Correct. I don't
ability.
have the ability at the moment.
Okay. I'll be right back.
I see Sarah's notes here. God says, act as if you have something. I remember my very timid mom acting as if she had no fear of a fierce dog that was about to attack us children. She carried us calmly over the dog to safety. She became fearless by acting fearless. Have other people experienced acting it as if it and becoming it? All the time. All the time. Yeah.
I have experienced that when I was, many years ago now. I was probably in my 30s, and I was working with two men actually, and it was just the three of us in the office, and it's just the banter that went on, and it was really annoying. And I decided on this particular day when I went into work that I was going to be not happy with the way they were carrying on. I was happy enough, but I was just going to show them that I wasn't happy. So I went in a mood, and I just could not shake it off for the whole of the day, the whole of the night. I just could not shake the mood off, because I decided that was what I was going to be.
Yeah. Beautiful.
It was certainly a lesson at the time to me.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello?
We can
Hi,
hear
this
you.
is Anne.
Hi,
Yes,
Ann.
this is Anne. Hi, it's been a while. Okay. What I notice for myself is what I focus on, I become. The stronger my focus is on something, or the more I obsess about something or whatever, is where my mind goes. So, in other words, what I focus on, my attention goes, and where my attention goes, my energy follows. How that fits into this is that I was thinking about myself and the fact that I have a really highly sensitive nervous system, and I'm sure that a lot of people on this call are like that too. We're kind of sensitive. Lately, I've been experiencing anxiety that I haven't experienced before. What I notice is it's more reactional. It's almost so automatic that I can't intervene with it, because it's almost like a habitual response or something. It's not in present time. It's triggered by something other than what's really happening. I don't know how this has anything to do with what we're talking about, but somehow that's what came up for me. So I'm sharing that. And because you also mentioned in the reading about a panic response. And so I was thinking of that in relation to biological intelligence and how we're programmed. And, you know, with the way we're raised, my mother would, you know, I know that my mother would had a very panicky response to things, or whatever. I don't know what I'm really trying to say, but maybe somebody can work off of this.
I would like to
Thank
add
you,
to
Ann.
that. I would love to
Okay.
add to that. And that was
Okay.
Anne, right?
Yes.
Okay. It's funny because when I just went out to go see what was wrong with my dogs, I got all panicky because the squealing that one of my dogs was making reminded me instantly of a time when two other dogs I used to have were playing, and the one dog got the other dog's collar caught in his teeth, and the one dog was strangling to death. And I went right to that worst possible fear place. And I think our circumstances in life attribute to this, as well as how the people around us react. My mom was an underreactor. She could be telling you that our great uncle Fred had just died, and have it be in the same tone that she'd say, "I'm going to go to the store and buy some bread." I was like, "What?" Myself, on the other hand, and my mother dealt with my father's death very beautifully. I was only 8 when he died from a long battle with cancer, and she was very calm and soothing and just the right person to be there. Now, I was raised being told my father was going to die because he was sick before I was born, and I was the oldest of 4 children. And so we kind of had it in our heads that, you know, he wasn't always going to be there, but my dad stressed actually, that when he died, he'd be able to go fishing with his father again. He'd be able to ride a rope swing in the middle of the night and look at the moon. And he did not make this a fearful thing for us. And so the day my mom told us that my dad had died, and she did it through story, it was very beautiful. She got finished, and I remember looking at her and I said, "You mean he's dead?" And I was as devastated as I've ever been in my entire life about anything until I had kids who almost died. But because I've experienced an incredible amount of death throughout my life, if somebody says to me, "Joni's going to the doctor," I'm like standing at the cemetery. You know, I mean, I go from she's got strep throat till, you know, that minor possibility. And it's weird. I don't get panicky, but that fear really takes over, and it's a hard thing to reel back in, because I know, and I'm going to be quiet here in just a second. My youngest son, has come to face death like 5 times. And most recently was a bicycle accident where a car ran into him. Well, they ran into each other. And I got a call and I was 90 minutes away and said, you need to get down here to the hospital. And I was with, many of you know who Dee Meyer is. I was with Dee at her house in the mountains. And I, did a little bit of cry. And then I went, oh my God, what am I going to do? And then I paced around Dee's house for about 30 minutes. And Dee came out to me and she put her hand on my shoulder and she goes, don't you think you ought to go? I kind of shut down. And I said, oh yeah, I need to go. And I at first wanted Dee to go with me so I wouldn't be alone. But there was this other part of me that needed to be alone. And so I drove down, and thank God, after 150 stitches in his face and other places, he was all right. And he's okay now. But because I had these other experiences, I'm starting to ramble. I don't know if that helps you out at all, Anne, but over. Anybody want to add?
I'll add to that. I think it's a natural mom reaction to go from zero to cemetery. I think is that how you put it? It's really natural because like when we're by ourselves, we could just really put up with so much stuff. And if we like hurt ourselves or break our arms or something, it's like, but when it's somebody else, you just feel so beside yourself because there's very little you could do other than the basic baseline caretaking to really help somebody else heal. But I just feel like I've been very escalated lately, probably because of all that's going on politically, but I also work with kids in traumatic situations. Like they're kids with IDD and they are really helpless, and I feel very concerned about what will happen to them if like Medicaid or benefits get cut. And so being felt escalated, I was really triggered by somebody in our community who is a really like negative advocate towards mental health. And I just felt like I went to this place of like zero to like like totally like cutting off benefits for my kids because I feel so protective of them. We found like a model that really works for kids that have been traumatized, that have like multiple diagnoses, including ADHD or IDD. And I just feel like we're really like in this community that I'm working in, we really found a recipe that works for them. And I'm like so defensive and stuff with them. And I don't know, it's sort of my little addition rambling, but I just feel really like escalated lately. And I think it's the culture of what we're going through. But and everything that Neil has said is like really on point to these kids that have been so traumatized, because people with disability get traumatized like at a really high percentage rate, more than I hate to say normal kids, but people that are not, because they have a lot of extra needs. And if they're coming into families that are struggling with addiction and stuff like that, they don't want to help the kids. It just usually turns into abuse. So I mean, the model that we're finding that works is just allowing kids to be able to vent their angers and frustrations and learn new behaviors and be able to say like, this makes me angry, because there's a medicine in that, like being able to just be angry about something instead of having to hold everything in. But yeah, sorry. Everything that Neil wrote in this chapter is so relevant to some of the work and research that we've been doing. So it's very, very medicinal to be able to just feel good, bad, even bad, whatever it is.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
agree with you, Brenna. As children, we've been programmed that to feel whatever, and without labeling a feeling, we're programmed to believe that feeling is certain feelings are okay and certain feelings are not okay. And as somebody who spent over 40 years in the fields of mental health and substance use, people need to feel safe to express whatever they're feeling. And you know, I think what's happening politically in our world right now is there's so much compassion that's being directed towards, you know, the all as a result of this bizarre behavior. And yeah, I mean, it's happening. It happened in Canada. We had one of our country coordinators that now lives in Chile, but she's from Quebec City, where that killing took place last Monday. I mean, it just brought the whole country together. You know, it just brought the whole country together. And, you know, the mosque here in Victoria that's been open since 2012, I believe, there was like a full-page article in the Times Colonist today. They're going to host an open house. Like, there's so much misunderstanding about that we are all one that's being touted at the moment. And it you know, it makes me feel anxious if I focus on it too. So I understand completely. And if you find children need to be free to express themselves, and otherwise, you know, it's like you grow up to be an adult and you're still this little tiny person that doesn't feel safe to be here.
Hi. Am I interrupting, or I'm sorry, were you done?
Yes, I'm complete.
Okay, good. All right. I had two comments I wanted to make. One of the things I see that what I call where I'm veiled is very interesting. I have this veil that I think if I only understood, then it would be okay, or something like that. And I think it's the desire to understand that's really the veil itself is thinking. But that's not, that was one aspect. And the other aspect was about trauma. And what happens, trauma is kind of different than other things, because it's like when trauma happens, I feel like you get stuck there. And there isn't a way that it's really worked through. And the only thing that I see that really helps working better with trauma is somatics, where if you go deep enough into the body, you find the mind. Somehow the need to communicate not just your feelings, but to associate it with the body, which is the soma, so that you get in touch with where, you know, kind of like if you're in a car accident, you really don't experience that. You're kind of in shock, and later on you process it because you're just trying to get through something. And when you think of PTSD with our soldiers, it's very hard for me to understand that. I was married to a Vietnam vet, and it just is a very hard thing to heal because it's so real. It's kind of like when it's happening, it's not like it's a memory. It's actually like it's happening again right here, right now. There isn't a separation of time. Anyway, so that's why I think that it's very important. The work that we're doing today connects things to the body, not just the mind. Because I think you could sit in therapy forever and not really get to something unless you can get in touch with where it is in you. And that's a piece of being able to express yourself, is to connect those two. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
I was going to say that I think it's interesting when God is describing that fear, you know, uncontrolled fear becomes panic. And I guess I've never really thought about it that way, but it really, and in fact, all of the breakdown that he did, the envy, the fear, whatever the other one was, they all relate to this political climate that we're in right now. And the fear into panic. And that's, you know, that's really, I think, where the Muslim ban comes from. They're panicking, they're panicked. And especially about that, they panicked. And it came out of that. And it's just fascinating. The other thing I wanted to say is that we don't teach children how to process their emotions. And that's one of the biggest things we have to do between now and whenever we get this ship turned back around again, is children and adults both have got to learn how to process their emotions. And then the last comment is just that don't forget that we have this cellular memory. So every cell in our body, like when we hear that noise of the dog, every cell in our body responds with the memory that they have of the last time they heard that sound. And so it's in those moments that we have to really work to become mindful and to bring ourselves into the moment and process what's happening in the now instead of in the future or in the past.
What I've been practicing for the last several weeks is just talking to the trillions of cells in my body and complimenting them on their innate intelligence and their ability. So things that, that I stuffed like 60 odd years ago are coming out and they're clearing my cells and I feel lighter. Yeah, it's a wonderful practice. And, to talk to, and that's how Myrtle Fillmore, who founded Unity 120 odd years ago, but she was given a terminal diagnosis of tuberculosis. And then she just went to a meeting one night, and out of that meeting, she came into her body and started to talk to every cell in her body. And Unity Church grew out of that. And, she lived for another 50 years.
Right.
Yes, and to add to that, it's the thing that it's written, Myrtle, her healing letters are really all about that. Hello?
Yeah, no, I hear you. And it's true. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay. So the other thing I noticed is that I was very sick with liver disease, and it had gotten to a stage where I had hepatic encephalopathy, where the ammonia goes to your brain and you kind of lose your memory and have a kind of dementia. What happened is, when I got well, which I am, what was really interesting is as my memory started coming back, where it started coming back is it started coming back through my movement. I don't know if it was because I was a professional dancer when I was younger, but it's like my memory was tied into my body. And I found that really interesting, is as I started to move again and feel movement come through my body, my memory started to return. So that was just an experience I had that I thought I'd share.
That makes sense, because there's this really innovative therapy called EMDR, and it's all about like carrying through the different levels of emotion with this like back and forth tapping until you get to a place of
eyes,
like
in
so
the
I
eyes,
mean yeah.
But then again, what it is it's cellular memory, muscle memory. Everything that ever happens to you is stored in your body. It's stored in the muscles. It's stored in, you have a muscle memory. So whenever you're experienced any kind of trauma or anything, it's recorded in your body.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of brings us back to where we started about a panic response, and was what you were sharing about the dogs and this, that, and the other thing of that. That's it. I'm done.
We do EMDR not just with the eyes, but we do it with the like somatic tapping. And like there's a kid in our
Somatic what? Somatic
tapping,
what?
tapping, like you tap on the body. And
Okay,
there's a kid that does boxing, so that back and forth like somatic, like he gets a lot of anger out with that. Like we get him in that place of like where he's able to process through many different emotions, and then like let him go with the boxing, and it's like that back and forth like somatic response. It really like clears up. It's really very, very miraculous, very interesting.
What does MDR stand for?
So EMDR is like, it's a eye movement rapid desensitization. So it is like, it can be like, I forget, it was that Anne that was talking, but she was saying that about the eye movement, and that is like a form of EMDR. We use at our facility a somatic form of it, but it rewires the brain. So like, especially it works especially with traumatic injury, where it's like you're right there, you're live. I mean, it could be a completely safe environment, but in your mind, in your brain, you're alive right in the middle of the trauma. So it rewires some of those brain connections that have you feeling that really like triggered emotion. And you travel through those emotions until you are like able to consciously like be aware that you're in a safe place, and then you stay there with the back and forth movement, and it's really miraculous.
But what
use
does
them.
AMDR, what are the full words for it, please?
So it's eye movement rapid desensitization,
Okay.
EMDR. Yeah, I think I could have my acronyms wrong, but it's a
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Brenda.
Check back with us next week with that acronym. One of the
And
things
then
that
I marked the book
okay,
for next
Oh.
week.
good. Well, one thing I want to just close with that I thought about when Brenna was saying the punching bag or boxing. My youngest son had some problems with. I mean, he wasn't hitting people, but he just had anger problems. So we bought him a punching bag and a pair of gloves, and that really helped him out. Which then reminded me of while I was growing up, my mom was mad that my dad died and left her with 4 kids. But what she would do is she would save all her chipped dishes and glassware and put them in this box in the garage. And then she would put on a paper grocery bag, 2 little slits, and she would go out, and excuse my language, but she'd say, "God damn son of a bitch," and she'd wing one of those plates at that cement wall, and she'd say, look up at the sky and said, "You shouldn't have left me yet," and then she'd throw a next one. And I remember thinking, my mom is gone nuts, but I've tried it, and it really works. I mean, as long as you're safe about it, you're not doing it in front of the kids. I mean, where they're standing there. But anyway, I think this call has given me a feeling like, okay, it's not just me. And with what we've read, it's just become more clear. Anybody else have any last minute thing?
I just love your stories, Nanette. I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you.
I think they're so interesting.
Thank you. Well, next Sunday, I will be here, and Linda and I are going to try to figure this out. And Linda, I did figure out in the middle of the phone call when I was trying to do something else how to hand you the mic or hand you to be the host while I'm on the call. I don't know if I can do it if I'm not on the call, but we'll get it figured out. And it just can't be rocket science. Everybody else is doing it. So, all right. Next Sunday, I will be here, and it is also Awakening Day. I am going to make up a bunch of posters. Love is the answer. I'll post it in the Evo Revo group if you want to run off copies and place them here and there everywhere. Okay? All right.
All right. Bye.
Love you all.
Love you guys.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.